Hello, my name is Brian Lucey. I'm Professor of International Finance and Commodities at the Trinity Business School in Dublin. And I'm here to give you a brief video outline of our recent paper with my colleague Samuel Vigna of Lewis Business School in Rome in the Financial Review on biodiversity. The paper is called Puzzles, Tensions and a Research Agenda for Biodiversity Finance. Um, I suppose we should start by saying that, like most research, we build. And we build here, we've learned a lot from climate finance. In some ways, biodiversity finance is where climate finance was maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. In climate finance, carbon moved from being a kind of a sideshow, a side statistic, something that was really only of concern to ecologists, to being a core financial risk. Biodiversity, it's our view, and increasingly the view of many researchers who are publishing in the area, is the next frontier. But it's much harder, we would argue. It's multidimensional, it's local, it's messy. But the thing is that biodiversity finance is, in fact, even though it's a relatively new area, already reshaping how firms and investors face this risk. We should note that there is a vast research in the area of financing for biodiversity, and our colleagues in accounting have for many years been working on what one might call nature-based capital accounting. But here we're looking at issues around how biodiversity risk impacts on the pricing kernel. Now, our paper, we think, doesn't just summarize what's out there. We have another paper that does that. It distills the puzzles that we believe are holding back our field. We boil this down to four major tensions that explain, we think, why biodiversity finance has not yet, in addition to being quite young, reached the maturity of climate finance. The first tension is one around measurement and taxonomy. Finance needs numbers. It's ultimately an empirical science. We need comparable, auditable indicators. But biodiversity resists being squeezed into one metric. Now, carbon dioxide has become, tons of carbon dioxide has become the kind of numeraire good in climate finance. Climate issues can be translated as being around carbon dioxide equivalents, carbon dioxide equivalent effects, etc. Biodiversity has thousands, millions of species, hundreds of millions of interactions, dependencies, a complex ecosystem that is the most complex web we have ever experienced. So the first big challenge is, how do we measure that in a way that both ecologists and financiers can trust? Second issue is around pricing and transformation. Is biodiversity a factor? Is it a slow-moving, slowly evolving factor that we can think of in a factor pricing way, like perhaps climate exposure? Or does it manifest itself as sudden shocks, a lawsuit, a supply chain collapse, a regulatory hit? The evidence is that it's both. It means, therefore, that models, both conceptual, empirical, have to handle both gradual, slow changes and pressures and possibly very stochastic, extreme tail risks. The third tension is around systemic and corporate finance. Supervisors like standardized stress tests, audits, etc. Investors like to be able to compare across companies, industries, etc. But the problem is that firms tend to experience very local biodiversity shocks. A fishery collapses, there's a deforestation event, there's an issue around an outbreak of disease that causes the unavailability of a particular brand of leather or foodstuffs. To bridge those scales, to bring the local events that add into the systemic risks, bridging those scales is something that requires both financiers and ecologists to work together to integrate biodiversity into real financial regulation, compliance, and comparability. Fourth tension is around policy disclosure, policy infrastructure. There are frameworks out there, like the Task Force for Nature Disclosure, the Kunming-Montreal Agreement. We have had the attempts, which have stuttered recently, on greening the financial networks. But the problem is that to verify, the ability to verify those claims kind of lags. It lags a bit behind where we would like it to be. And without this credible measurement, disclosure has the risk of becoming theatre. We're familiar with the concepts of greenwashing. In other research, we're looking at the concept of biowashing, biodiversity washing. So we argue that we need robust assurance structures and verifiable schemes whereby we can see what exactly is going on at the corporate level. This may come through corporate pressures and the pressures of individual companies responding to others, or it may come from top-down government approaches. Probably it will come from both. Putting all those together, we think there are three threads that run through the whole area. Translating ecological data into financial variables is complex and difficult. We have to account for geography. Nature risk tends to be place-tied. And we have to manage the credibility and verification costs. Now, putting all of these together, we provide a table, which I won't go into here. We have a set of eight concrete research questions. We give some indication of what we think are the most impactful and also the most tractable. We believe that these give you a roadmap for building the field in the future. So in summary, biodiversity finance is a test. Can financial systems internalize something this complex and make it meaningful? Can we do well while doing good? Our agenda suggests yes, this can be the case, but only if we bridge ecology and finance with transparent data, credible metrics, and models that capture both factors and shocks. We look forward to seeing how the field evolves over the next number of years and hope that this paper provides a starting point for some research to build upon what's there at the moment. Please read and cite. Thank you very much, and thank the editors of the Financial Review in particular for their forward-looking and extremely helpful views in crafting this work.